7 Days to Die has about 57 perks, which is quite a lot of ways to accidentally waste your skill points as a new player. So I've compiled a list of my 7 most hated perks that I personally just think are not all that worth your skill points in modern 7 Days to Die. Of course, this is subjective, but this is definitely my experience after several thousand hours in this game. And I'm not gonna lie, I think the first few are gonna be some hot takes, because honestly, I think it just speaks to the fact that a lot of perks have been made much more useful by 2.0. So good job there, fun pimps. Ugh, no, I didn't like that. Let's jump in with the least worst perk, that is to say number 7, Grand Slam. Grand Slam was added in 7 Days to Die 2.0, and I initially thought it was going to be really overpowered and absolutely solidify the reign of the tyrant sledgehammers and clubs. But is anybody else a little bit underwhelmed? A 50% chance to ragdoll enemies. Sounds good, right? But it's not really in practice. It's a 50% chance to ragdoll enemies with sprinting attacks, which is where the problem lies. If I'm running directly, balls first into a zombie, I want to know that that's going to knock over the zombie. Because basically, this perk should really be described as a 50% chance to knock over an enemy, or a 50% chance to get your teeth knocked out. On insane difficulty, I am not taking those odds, especially when you consider that I have a gun. The script line I used for that was called Pregnant Pause. And yes, I do write my scripts in Notepad, it's called being based. Anyway, I don't want to get punched in the mouth half the time I decide to use this perk. It's just not a good strategy for survival on harder difficulties, and for 5 skill points, in this economy, I'll pass. On to number 6, another hot take, I fear. The attack speed perks, all 5 of them. Look, a 25% increased speed with melee weapons is nice, it is, but I haven't taken these perks probably since they were added at all. I just can't justify spending a skill point on a 5% increase to my melee swing speed, usually with one melee weapon, when I could put that into almost anything else and just get more out of it. It's really one of those perks that only makes sense to take when you have little else to invest in, but by then you will largely be depending on guns and other late game damage dealing more than melee anyway. It's not worthless, it has its niche, particularly for specialized melee only builds, but as somebody who doesn't do that much, it's not really worth it, especially since there are 5 separate versions, so you can waste 25 skill points on making melee weapons swing faster. If it were more like the old Flurry of Blows perk where it affected all melee weapons, or perhaps you could have Flurry of Blows in the general tree for one-handed melee weapons and Big and Fast for two-handed melee weapons, that would be a bit more economical skill point wise, though even then, with how general perks work, 2 perks at 5 ranks each with increasing costs comes up to 20 points still. I don't know, it's an improvement to consider, I think. Oh, and by the way, if you're enjoying this video, please drop a like and maybe subscribe, it really does help a lot. Anyway, next perk. Number 5, Daring Adventurer. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. This perk was always a hard hitter in my best perks videos I made a couple of years ago, but I just can't justify it anymore, despite the fact that the perk has technically been buffed directly. Let me run this perk down for you since it's a little bit vague in some of what it actually does. Each rank gives you 10 levels worth of trader stage. That means if you were to max it out, you'd be getting 50 levels higher, better gear at the trader. So if you were level 10 and you had this maxed out, for example, you would be level 60 as far as the traders were concerned, which is decent. And the 25% more dukes for quests is also decent. However, the main appeal to Daring Adventurer always used to be the double quest rewards, and quite honestly, I can't think of a single time I've done a quest since probably Alpha 21 where I was like, oh boy, I wish I could take both of these piles of garbage. I don't know, maybe 5th worst is too harsh, but I feel strongly about this one considering how powerful quest rewards used to be, where you would regularly just get things like guns and melee weapons and pieces of armor compared to now. The trader stage is nice, but it has the annoying thing where it's near worthless at the very start of the game and completely worthless at the end of the game, which I personally dislike in my perks. And having to have 10 intellect and spend 5 skill points for all that, I'll pass. Maybe one day we can be together again, Daring Adventurer. In fact, my most viewed YouTube short is about how much I love Daring Adventurer, and do note, it's my most viewed YouTube short because Jen is in the thumbnail. Anyway, we were doing a perk ranking. Number 4, Grease Monkey, another mighty fall from grace. Back in the day, I was obsessed with this perk. It used to give you access to the ability to craft vehicles, meaning if you rush straight to 10 intellect, you could get Grease Monkey 5 and have a gyrocopter like on day 5, which is still possible, but dear God, it is a lot more work now. The removal of that feature kind of left Grease Monkey a little bit shit. It gives you a 33% discount on crafting each vehicle, which is nice, but I'm not wasting up to 5 skill points to probably save me like 40 minutes of work across my entire run. And it makes repair kits 50% more effective, which again is nice, but all it does is save me some cheap resources. It's just not all that helpful. Saving resources is nice, but that 33% discount on parts is really only impactful in multiplayer, where it will meaningfully reduce the amount of work if you're making like 5 or 6 plus gyrocopters. The repair kits are nice as well, but duct tape just isn't that rare, nor is forged iron. Fun Pimps add collision damage reduction to Grease Monkey and unwash my goat, which is somehow not a Gen Z brain rot phrase. Anyway, on to number 3. Number 3, Animal Tracker. Yeah, I didn't need Animal Tracker to see you coming, buddy. No surprises, you've been in the worst top 3 perks since you were added. This gives you the ability to see animals on your compass and your map within 100 meters if you crouch for a few seconds, but you need to max it out to see anything you would be really worried about. The only real saving grace of this perk, I'd say, is that it is kind of an accessibility feature, but for someone like me who has functioning ears and eyes, I don't particularly have a hard time identifying that an animal is near me. The scary ones make noises and the other ones are fairly easy to see most of the time, so I don't see why I would waste 5 skill points on this. It can be helpful to get like rank 1 to help you see chickens and rabbits if you struggle with food early on, but if you need meat, really just go find a boar in a farm POI and kill it with spikes. Problem solved. Difficult for new players maybe, but you'll come to disappreciate this perk, and yes, I made that word up. Anyway, on to number 2. Lucky Looter. Well, another washed up has-been to add to my collection. I used to really like Lucky Looter back when you could only loot tier 6 gear and you couldn't craft it, so it had an actual purpose as far as loot stage was concerned. And back then, the loot stage system had a higher cap, so it was more useful for longer. Now you max your loot stage at 205, which you can do at like level 50 by going to the Wasteland. And if you do get this perk before or at level 50, that's taking up a fifth of your skill points, because Lucky Looter costs 10 United States skill points to max out. 10. 1 0 for a 25% increase to your loot stage and an 80% increase in looting speed. It's nice that it isn't attribute locked anymore, but this cost is just too high overall. The point of the game where it'll have an impact is such a short window of time now that it's almost definitely not worth the 10 skill points it would take at that stage of the game. You could max out clubs and shotguns with those 10 skill points, for example. The 80% faster looting is very nice, but is it 10 skill points nice? Not in my opinion. Another shame, this perk was definitely up there in my old perk rankings. Number 1, Pack Mule. Just kidding, but it is a tradition. This perk used to suck major ass, but they gave it a lot of utility, and honestly now it's just kind of mid. But I can't go a worse perks video on an IzPrebuilt channel without mentioning how much I used to hate Pack Mule. The real number 1 is Infiltrator, even after the urban combat nerf. Yes, this makes it so the traps and mines trigger 5 seconds slower and you take less damage from mines, as well as being able to pick up mines. This perk has, as far as I can tell, one use. 1. If you're playing a landmine challenge and need landmines, this is good. Otherwise, pretty useless. I'm told some people like to pick up the mines and sell them. I feel like there are better investments you could make for 5 skill points in the perception tree that would get you more money. For example, salvage operations or treasure hunter. But if you're really trying to maximize your money, I guess you could do that. In my 4,000 hours of this game, I have died to a landmine twice. Once when I was like 16 years old playing on Alpha 15 on Xbox, and once when my friend put a mine under my mini bike and absolutely pranked me. That is a very low rate of landmine deaths per hour to justify a perk that focuses that heavily on them. Maybe it's useful in PvP? I don't know, maybe all 9 of you can sound off in the comments. I don't know how popular mines are in PvP really. And the slower loose board trap thing, that honestly just slows you down half the time, because you walk over loose boards because you're trying to fall into the next stage of a POI usually. Rarely is it an actual trap. It's usually part of the level design, so you're just kind of slowing me down. I really just can't find a use for this in 99.9% of playthroughs, and thus it is cringe. If you want more 7 Days to Die content, why not check out this video popping up on screen with some tips and tricks. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.